Hello, everyone, and welcome to SPM Academy. I'm Deborah McGrath, Principal Product Marketing Engineer with ServiceNow and host of our SPM Academy webinars. Today, we're thrilled to be joined by two of our top collaborative work management experts, Lillian Yang, who is a Senior Principal Inbound Product Manager, and Irene Veith, Senior Outbound Product Manager. Let me first point out our safe harbor notice that while most of what we'll be discussing and showing you are features that are available now, this presentation may contain forward-looking statements reflecting the current beliefs of ServiceNow, and all are based on current information available. However, actual results may differ materially and should not be relied upon in making purchasing decisions. So as we look at our agenda, I can tell you that we're in for a treat, as Irene and Lillian will be discussing why we created Collaborative Work Management, or CWM. Lillian will then show us a demo, including several new great capabilities, and they'll also discuss typical use cases of CWM and how to go about implementation to get started. And then we'll wrap up, as usual, with some helpful resources and upcoming events. And now I'd like to welcome Lillian and Irene. So, Irene, why did we build collaborative work management?
Thanks, Deborah. So let's set the scene for how we view the world of work in CWM. We know that ServiceNow offers these amazing domain-specific tools across the enterprise that really fit these great use cases that are really common. But we also know that the reality is that teams are still using other tools for cross-functional collaboration, such as to-do lists, spreadsheets, and notebooks. And they're jumping to these tools because what they're looking for is something really lightweight and flexible that they have a lot of control over. But then the result is that under the surface, you have this array of disconnected tools that don't talk to each other and that don't connect to the Now platform. When this happens, a couple of challenges arise. The first is that we see silos being created between teams and a frustrating employee experience where they have to jump between several tools to complete their work. Teams are often required to use complex or inflexible tools that serve as speed bumps as opposed to catalysts to innovation. And with many different applications, shadow IT starts to manifest itself in costly redundancies, increased administrative burden, and exposure to security risk. And then finally, managers are unable to see their team's workload. And then in turn, team members don't see how their work relates to the larger goals and strategy of the organization, causing additional disengagement. Given the pace of change across all industries, it's critical for teams to be able to centralize on a single tool and collaborate effectively and in real time. And so this is where CWM comes in. Simply put, CWM is a central hub for knowledge workers to plan, visualize, and collaborate on work with their teams. And so we're going to get into the demo, which I'm sure everyone's excited to see in a second. But just before we do that, I just want to touch on a couple of notes about why we think that ServiceNow CWM is the best tool for your teams that are working on the ServiceNow platform. The first reason is that it keeps all of your work in a single solution. This helps reduce tool switching, that swivel chair experience that takes work out of its context and also wastes time and is frankly just confusing and hard to keep track of. Teams can also adapt CWM to how they work rather than the other way around. They have at their fingertips the power to configure CWM to fit their workflows and their unique needs, again, without having to go to an administrator to do that work. And finally, CWM leverages your existing network of connected data to improve visibility and decision making. So this lets you do things like pull on your existing teams, your existing stories and tasks, rather than having to rebuild that in a different system and make sure things are up to date and create all of this redundant work. You're able to just pull on everything that's there and have the most accurate and up-to-date information. And so all of this means increased employee satisfaction, improved productivity, and faster value delivery. And with that, I'll hand it over to Lillian to give us a demo and see how it works in action.
Thank you, Irene. I'm super excited to share a demo of CWM with you today. So we're in the collaborative work management workspace as Aaron today, and I'm going to show just one application of how you can use CWM, but it can be used broadly across any initiative where you're needing lightweight planning needs. So Aaron today, he has a personal space where he can plan his own tasks, documents, to-do lists. He's also part of a couple of shared spaces. So you can see here, his PMO org is organizing some documents. He's part of a social media marketing team. He's part of a cloud migration initiative. So it can be, your spaces can be centered around your teams or the work you're doing. And today, Aaron has been tasked to plan the company's hackathon. So he'll go ahead and create a space to plan the hackathon. So he's going to call this Hackathon 2024. And within this space, he can start inviting some team members to help him collaborate. So he's going to invite Erev, Abby, and maybe we'll also invite a group here. So we're going to invite our ITSM engineering to help. Now within this space, Aaron is able to create either a board to organize tasks or a doc to organize documentation. He wants to start planning some tasks around the hackathon. So we're going to go ahead and create that board. And we'll call this hackathon planning. And now that that board is created, we'll go ahead and start adding tasks. So we'll maybe define some themes and challenges for our hackathon. We can book a conference room. And we'll create a marketing flyer. And one thing to note is that within that space, Aaron can create as many boards or docs as he's needed to plan this work. So if he needs another board to plan logistics of that conference room, he can quickly spin up another board for that. And then we can also plan different types of tasks. So say we want to plan defects, or we want to create some custom ones. So I may want to create some events related to my hackathon, or I want to add some checkpoints. So I can quickly add those as new item types. And then making sure that they're enabled, now I can start adding those types of items. So here I may create an event for our kickoff party for that hackathon. And I'll change this to the event type. Or I may want to have an award ceremony. And you'll see that these tasks come with some out-of-the-box columns that you would expect, such as assigned to, state, start, and end date. But if I have a need for a custom column, I can quickly add those custom columns. And we support a large range of different types, but let me demonstrate a few that might be helpful. So I may use a label type column when I have a need for a column that has multiple labels. So I'm going to start assigning teams to this work. So we'll need to pull in our HR team, our facilities, operations, and also maybe our marketing team. And we can define some custom colors for each team. Add that as a column. We'll also add a people type column called approver, because I would like some approvers for these tasks. And I'll use a custom filter for this approver field. So only people who are in the department HR will be able to approve these tasks. And I'd also like to reference other tasks in ServiceNow. So I know some of these are dependent on some incidents we have open right now. So I'm going to add our related incidents table here. And let's go ahead and start using these columns we just created. I'm going to move them up front so I can see them easily. And then I can start adding which team is going to do each piece of work. So for the themes and challenges, I will assign this to our HR and marketing team. For the conference team, conference room, our operations and facilities will be helping out with that. And marketing flyer, the marketing team will be responsible for. I can also add approvers. And once again, they're filtered to that HR column I chose earlier so that I know the approvers of these tasks are only the people in the HR team. I'll also tag some related incidents that may block our work. So I can quickly tag incidents. I can reference any table in ServiceNow. So if I have related risks, project tasks, I can quickly create a custom column to add that reference in. Now, taking this view of this data, I can also flip it into different views depending on the workflow I want to support. So I can see things in a timeline if I want to see from a bird's eye view what's happening this week and move things across the timeline. I can also take these tasks and see in a Kanban mode and start moving work across lanes. I can define the lane I want, including across custom columns I've created. And one really cool feature of our boards is the ability for end users to create automations. If I want to create simple automations so that my team saves time doing manual updates, I might create an automation such as when the state of the field changes to complete, then update that priority to moderate. So we'll see that in action. So let me go ahead and turn on our priority field. And based on that, I'm going to change this task to complete. And you'll see that the priority automatically updates to moderate. Another type of automation may be to help my team be informed of upcoming changes or when things are due. So I may set a notification where when the start date arrives, send a notification to the assigned to of that task so that they know that they should start working on it. Or when the end date, 3 days before it arrives, please send an email to that approver so that they can start looking at that work and making sure everything's done, right? So you can send an email to specific people, to custom columns, to everyone in that space. So it's really flexible for you to make sure that everyone is informed of changes to the product, to your project. All the custom columns and automations that you create are localized only to this board. So you're not affecting the custom columns of another space you're working on, such as your social media marketing space, where you may have different needs. And we can also connect this work to strategic planning workspace. So if my hackathon planning is related to a goal, I can quickly tie it to a goal that my team is working on, such as employee well-being and growth. And we'll be able to see that all these tasks drive towards a strategic outcome. And if I want to see this as a planning item, I can attach it to my lens structure, which right now I'm using my organization lens. So I'll add my department HR. And jumping into our strategic planning workspace and going into our HR portfolio for 2024, you'll be able to see CWM boards as a planning item along with your demands, your projects, and epics so that you can prioritize them and also see them in a roadmap with other items that you're working on. Now, coming back into our collaborative work management workspace, we also have the ability to create docs so that you can action on your work directly within that workspace. So say Aaron wants to work on the task of defining themes and challenges. Instead of jumping into a different tool, he can directly create that document right here. Now, our docs is a rich text doc where team members can collaborate on. So I'll populate some content here. You'll see that Aaron is able to quickly put in hackathon themes and challenges. And the nice thing is he can tag team members. So we can mention Aaron and ask him to please add your ideas here. And we can reference other records. So we can reference any record in ServiceNow, CWM tasks, project tasks, incidents. So I'm going to go ahead and reference that marketing flyer so that Aaron knows to update the flyer with our themes. And you'll see here, Aaron is able to collaborate with his team members, create documents, and all of this is available right now as of our May release. But I'd like to also explore what's coming in August. As part of August release, we're introducing the concept of My Work. So My Work actually brings together all the tasks that you're assigned to across CWM. So if you have 10 spaces and people are assigning you tasks across each one, you'll be able to see a consolidated view of everything you're assigned, as well as brings in anything you're assigned to across SPM. So project tasks, risks, issues, all of your RIDAC items, demand tasks, and your stories. You'll be able to filter which ones you're interested in, right? So that you can change the filters. You'll be able to set a date range of what task range, so this month, this week, or tasks you're assigned today. And also see a quick overview of high priority items. So what's overdue, what's open, what's super critical, right? And clicking into each of these modules, you'll be able to filter that. So clicking into overdue, I can see quickly all my overdue items, open up the record to see more details, and start actioning upon that work. So instead of having to click into each project to see your work, you can see across all my projects, these are my tasks, and also see the source of that project, right? So I can see that this task right here is related to a project I'm working on around bill pay. So we're super excited to bring you this new feature in August, and that is the end of our demo. Thank you.
We've actually got a bunch of questions in the chat. We had a couple questions around kind of actually the fields and sort of the back end. So one, there's kind of two related ones. One, are these actually creating fields on a table and kind of asking about the ACLs? And then the related one, I think it was a question around, is it related to the the normal task table?
So the CWM task is not on the task table. There are plans to potentially bring in some of the work in the task table into CWM, but that's TBD. How this works right now is the out-of-the-box columns are on its own table. Then as you add custom columns, we're adding it to a table called CWM custom task table. And we combine that into a single view here so that you can see both your out-of-the-box columns as well as your custom columns.
Awesome. And then related question, what licensing is required for team members? So I can answer that. It's either an SPM license, which includes CWM, or there's a standalone CWM license. And then the second part of that was, do custom task types and custom columns count towards the custom table and custom entitlements? And those do not count.
So to provide further detail on that, the custom columns, they are limited to 100 per space. So you do per space, you would have 100 custom columns, which should be sufficient for most.
Does this replace demand management, project management, or Agile 2.0? What persona are you targeting as the primary user of this tool? It does not replace demand management or project management. Those are both part of SPM. And Agile 2.0, this is something that we're looking at as kind of an alternative to Agile 2.0 in the future. Right now, the kind of guidance is to continue to use Agile 2.0, but we are definitely building out Agile capabilities within CWM. And so the primary persona that we're targeting, it's a very broad answer. Our kind of answer is really any knowledge worker on the ServiceNow platform we think can have a use case for CWM because it is so lightweight and flexible and customizable. We do see this as a tool for the work that really everybody in an organization does. Everyone has tasks, everyone's collaborating with each other. They need to work on, but we are going to be building out more tools for more targeted personas like Agile team members. But more saying kind of at the team member level, if you're someone like a project manager or program manager, you're probably going to be working more in SPM.
Yeah, and I'd like to add for the main difference that I see between CWM and project is this is more lightweight, whereas for project, if you're doing more formal waterfall projects where you're dependent on dependencies, milestones, baselines, or you're doing financials and resourcing, that's where I recommend using project. They can certainly be used in conjunction for each other, but when you need that, status report, financial reporting, definitely go into project. Demand should certainly be managed within demand workspace. And, all of these are different planning items that roll up into the same roadmap, right? So you may have a demand that converts into a CWM board or a demand that converts into a project, but you'll be able to track them all in one view in our prioritization and our roadmap.
Right. There are more questions in the chat, but I think we'll go ahead and get to the last couple of slides where we'll talk on use cases and implementations. And I think that might answer some of the questions as well. So yeah, as we said, I think a lot of people are wondering that are familiar with SPM, how this works with SPM. And as we mentioned, CWM is included in the SPM license, but it's also available as a standalone license. So if you have other team members who don't use SPM, if you have other stakeholders who want visibility into work in CWM, they can have their standalone license for that. Comparing it to kind of the other tools that you might be using to track your work, project workspace, and the planning workspace. How does CWM fit in? Where should you be doing what type of work? So with project workspace, this is more for your structured planning where you might be tracking resources and financials. If you need either of those things tracked, that should live within project workspace. This is going to be best for like that very structured work. Planning workspace is more for a higher level prioritization or road mapping of all of your planning item types. So projects, demands, epics, as we mentioned, now also CWM boards. And if you're tracking goals, those will also be in planning workspace. And then CWM is for that lightweight, flexible task tracking. This is where you're not as concerned with structure and kind of conforming to other things where you want to give your end users a lot of flexibility. I kind of think of this as like, this is where you really are just trying to get stuff done. We don't want a lot of processes. We don't want red tape. You're just giving someone a tool that they need to track their work. So I think operational work came up in some of the questions. This could be good for operational work where it's just sort of day-to-day stuff that's going on, just needs to kind of get done. And this is a tool for teams to do that without slowing them down. And then again, to touch on use cases a little bit more, we always get asked, what are the use cases we see for this? And it's a little bit of a hard question to answer because we see so many use cases and they're so varied from organization to organization across industries as well as across departments. But a couple of things that come up frequently that are good to think about. One is just cross-functional work, where maybe these different departments use different tools traditionally, and it's hard to get them to all centralize on one tool. This can be a great platform to do that cross-functional work. Things like policy reviews, things like contract renewals, one-off ad hoc events that come up are going to be great for CWM. And then also for any work that is related to other work on the Now platform, especially because we can reference other work in docs and in columns, also just to keep everything on one tool without having to switch. So a couple examples are like ITSM, process improvement, problem resolution. I saw a question about continual improvement management. So yes, this could be a great way to track tasks related to that work. For APM, this could be tasks related to application onboarding or offboarding. With App Engine, you can imagine this. It's a really great place for citizen developers to start planning and brainstorming the apps they're building. So again, very broad use cases. Think about flexible work that just doesn't have a great home today, or you're maybe jumping to another tool where it would really be better to have this all within ServiceNow platform. So Lillian, could you talk a little bit about like some of the specific use cases that we've heard from our customers?
Yeah, we've really seen CWM used across industry. So in healthcare, in manufacturing, IT, use cases are so wide and varied. So we've seen people move building locations, right, using CWM and planning a move. We've seen CWM used for implementing applications and also for planning retail operations, onboarding of new vendors. A marketing team uses it. Our internal sales team uses it to plan and organize their demos. Really, a lot of work that's it's traditionally tracked in spreadsheets or OneNote, your one-off to-do list, being now organized in CWM.
And then can you talk a little bit about the implementation?
So the implementation is super easy. We've had customers set it up in a matter of minutes. That's because there's only really two required steps. You install the CWM plugin and you assign the role, and that's the only required steps. You assign the role to the people you want to use CWM, and because it's so configurable, they end up configuring their own custom columns, create their own spaces, and they can decide who has editor or viewer access to their spaces. We also have 3 optional steps. So you can set up an automatic workflow to grant roles to users who request it. You can set up the CWM and SPW connection, as you saw earlier, where you can enable CWM to be tied to a specific lens structure. And you can also define which tables can be mentioned in docs. So you saw in our demo that we've enabled a wide variety of different tables such as incidents and project tasks. And all of this implementation, we have an easy guide available in our community. There's a step-by-step video, and we've had lots of customers follow the guide and get started in a few minutes. So feel free to scan that QR code to get started.
And then we'll take a look at their upcoming events and resources. But the first one, we just want to encourage you all. We have a really fast demo, like 3-minute demo on YouTube. So if you want to share this with your team, go ahead and grab this URL. It'll give you the quick rundown of everything you need to know about CWM. And then I'll hand it back to Deborah to share some of the other events coming up.
Thanks, Irene and Lillian. What a great discussion and excellent demo of that incredible flexibility of collaborative work management. And we also appreciate that sneak peek at the new My Work feature. It's really easy to understand how it can enable planning, collaborating across cross-functional teams. Thanks also for that great insight on how and when to use CWM. I know that's evolving, as well as how to get started. I do want to point out that video that Irene just shared. It is a great video and it happens to be Irene again. So definitely want to encourage you to take a look at that. We do have some upcoming events. In August, our APM solution offering will be renamed to Enterprise Architecture. And our next SPM Academy webinar will be August 29th, when we'll introduce ServiceNow Enterprise Architecture with brand new and enhanced capabilities, including enterprise modeling and visualization, consolidated technology portfolio management, enhanced digital integration management to help you better understand your organization's landscape, and much more. So do join us in August for that. Next, our biannual SPM Vision Series is coming up again on Thursday, September 19th. Scan this QR code to register for the event, where you'll hear discussions and demos from ServiceNow customers and industry leaders, as well as our ServiceNow team members, including a keynote by our SPM and EA General Manager, Yoav Boaz, and a look at our SPM product roadmap presented by Director of Product Management, Karina Hatfield. And the week before that, on Thursday, September 12th, we'll present our biannual Enterprise Architecture Vision Series, formerly called APM Vision Series. It's a similar format as our SPM Vision Series, and this one will be pretty exciting as we'll hear from Doron Orbach, Senior Manager, Inbound Product Management, about our plans as we expand our APM offering more fully into the enterprise architecture space. And of course, you can register for any of our live on ServiceNow events at community.servicenow.com under events, as well as check out our YouTube playlist to view this webinar again or access our prior last Thursday's SPM Academy webinars. Thank you again, Irene and Lillian. This isn't the last time you'll hear about collaborative work management. We're really pretty excited about it. So thank you to my fantastic co-producer, John Lim, and much appreciation to you, our SPM Academy audience, for joining us. See you on our next SPM Academy webinar.